gas fees. So, this is it. You may have heard on a couple of my shows why Ethereum is kind of unusable right now. It's very expensive. This is the Ethereum scanner. These are current gas fees for Ethereum. I have highlighted there, it says $20, and that's a high. The low is $18.73. $19 for a simple transfer of any kind. When you start talking about doing more interesting things, adding liquidity into pools, you're talking $50, $60 on a swap on Uniswap. On just adding or removing liquidity pool, that's what the LP stands for there. $50. That's ridiculous. And I'll say this is the thing that has made it very interesting, and this is one of the reasons why right here. OpenSea. OpenSea is the NFT. They suck down mad Ethereum. They're paying used 10% of the Ethereum fees over the last 24 hours were paid by OpenSea to move around NFTs. NFTs are very expensive computationally. Computations. So, let me back up to where I was earlier. What is gas? What are gas fees? What is a crypto network? What is it? It's a bunch of computers running software. Each one of these running a full set of the software is called a node, generally. What you're trying to do, what your gas fees are, is you're paying that computer to run something for you. You want it to do something for you. So you're saying, hey, I would like to use those resources that you guys have running on this big collective computer that you guys are all running together. I would like you to do some things for me. Here's how much I'll give you. Hopefully it's enough. The reason why you have to do this, again, nothing in life that does work is free. And this is basic physics. It's, welcome to the hard time of reality kind of stuff. Nothing in life is free, and even when you're doing all of these transactions, there's no free lunch. There's no free lunch here. And so these computers that people are running that are keeping all these blockchains networked, because again, this is a distributed ledger, and it's kept live by computers currently running the software that keeps it running. And they're listening for transactions to be broadcast, and then they're checking to make sure that everything's kosher, then they're minting new blocks. But it's a computer out there running right now. Computers, as you know, take electricity, they take maintenance, they take administrators, they take data centers, all of these things cost money. So running the computer that runs the cryptocurrency network costs money. Asking them to do stuff, they need money. Making your car go takes gas, it costs money. Making your Ethereum go takes gas, it costs money. All of these work the same way. Radium takes Solana. Spooky Swap, like I mentioned, takes Phantom. Osmosis is a special case right now, and we'll talk about that. Right now, adding and removing and swapping on Osmosis is free because they just started a little while ago, and I'm curious to see what the fees are going to be when it's not free anymore. My experience on other Cosmos chains, they are medium priced, but we'll see. PancakeSwap, this runs on Binance, which is the Binance Smart Chain. Most definitely not free. Especially when BNB drops up a huge price. QuickSwap. This runs on Matic. Matic is also not free. It is wildly cheaper than Ethereum, and they recently increased their prices, their gas fees, by 30 times. It went from, I believe it was 1 Gwei, which is 1/1,000,000th of the token, to 30, which changed the fees for transactions to about a penny. About a penny per transaction on Matic. $50 per transaction on Ethereum. And that's not even the really tricky stuff. And that's not even the badly coded stuff. When I say badly coded, ShipSwap, sorry, you're paying the computer to do things for you. That's what the gas is for. And the way it really kind of breaks down ultimately is literally like you have to pay for addition, subtraction, multiplication, setting up arrays, data storage. Tezos is super weird. I haven't even talked about Tezos, but their whole storage thing, I don't quite fully understand it. But so you're paying for all of these different gas fees as you're doing this computation. So you're paying for this work. So it's you need to be aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. Because when you do a decentralized transaction, you've got two things that you'll be paying. Gas fees and transaction fees. And they're different. Transaction fees, and we'll move on. We'll do transaction fees real quick. Transaction fees vary. And this is the quick comparison going back to decentralized versus centralized exchanges. On Coinbase, generally, your transaction fee is going to be about 0.5%. People, by the way, from Wall Street saw this and were like horrified that this would be so high, and then there would be really quick competition for it to drop down to nothing, to 0%. And there are certain exchanges that do allow 0% trades. However, as I just explained to you, ultimately on the blockchain itself, you cannot offer 0% trades. This is very clear when you look here. And this is the Etherscan Ethereum tracker. If you get involved in various blockchains, you definitely need to find the Explorer. Again, these are all public. All the transactions are. Your wallet is. All your transactions are. When you're wondering what the heck's going on, you can look up in the Explorer and see what all the computers that are running the network see. It's all open. And that's what's very important about this. All of the ones I'm talking about are open. There are some that have privacy features. We'll talk about one of those when we get to our more in-depth DEX series and talk about secret swap. You can see, if you look, this is gas guzzlers here, but if you look here, this is gas spenders. And look, what is this? The top two of these are Coinbase, and then it's Crypto.com, and then Coinbase and Coinbase. And then Binance. Because what they do is, while they can offer those 0.5% trades and swaps on their platform, they actually have to settle up on the blockchains themselves, and that's expensive as hell right now. It really is on Ethereum. And so they have I can only contemplate their internal systems, how they settle up, how their accounting works. It appears to, and people trust them. Centralized exchanges, again, not your keys, not your crypto, but again, you do have that infrastructure of someone whose life depends, or at least livelihood depends on securing everything for the company he works for, protecting your stuff, and they're professionals, world-class professionals. So the centralized versus decentralized question is a real one. And until you feel comfortable taking custody into a custodial wallet, which means you have custody, you own those tokens, you can do whatever you want with them, leave them on a centralized exchange, right? Until you feel comfortable. And then, you can start having some fun. So, what can you do? You want to pull them off a centralized exchange? What can you do? We talked about our wallets. Here's our link again to our wallet thing. We've talked about the liquidity pooling. So now you've pulled your stuff off a centralized exchange. What can you do with it? Right? What can you do with those tokens that you now have custodial control on? So staking, we talked about liquidity pooling. Now there's staking, baking, farming, lending. These are all kind of the same kind of stuff. Staking is usually locking up your tokens with someone else having some degree of control of them. Now, it depends a little bit on the blockchain specifically. So on something like PancakeSwap, right, you take liquidity, you take your liquidity tokens, and then you farm it, right? You take those liquidity pool tokens, right? And here it has a list of, and that's what these are. These are the combinations that make up the tokens, right? You take half the value of one, make up the other, you get one of these tokens, you put them into this pool, and then you farm them. Which what that means is other people are then allowed to trade them. So what this does, and this is staking. You can stake your liquidity pool, your LP tokens, and you can also natively stake coins themselves. And some of these, particularly those with higher inflation rates, and this is where we'll talk a little bit more about osmosis here in a second, they generate more of themselves by you locking them up for a certain period of time. Now, this is particularly true for Cosmos SDK tokens, and that would be on Osmos, most of the ones here. All of these have their own native wallets and places to stake them. When they do, they generate an inflation rate. So the inflation rate becomes how many new tokens are printed at a certain time. Many of these will not have a max supply. And some of them will. Now, like QuickSwap, for instance, Quick does have a max supply. The total supply is slightly less than 1 million. Others don't. It really is specific. Cake most definitely does not have a max supply. Osmosis does have a max supply. I'm not sure on Phantom, to be honest. But it's very specific to the chain what the tokenomics are. We've talked about that in some of our other videos. You can watch our first kind of general video on tokenomics. The inflation rate. Now, this is one of those things that you need to be aware of and just kind of understand about what's happening with certain things. Now, osmosis in particular, there are ultimately going to be, right, if everybody follows through with everything that they've said they're going to do, which is one of those things that's built into the fundamentals of all of this stuff, as even something like Ethereum is going to do with their Ethereum upgrade, right, to hopefully fix those gas prices. And Bitcoin does have active development on, the code that runs Bitcoin. You can see it in the Bitcoin repository if you'd like to go look at it. There are, ongoing updates. So it's all of this does have the potential to change in the code in a certain sense, right? Not everybody out there has to run the new code. And so these nodes can choose to run older versions of code. This leads to blockchain forks. This is all fundamental risks of cryptocurrency. So the notion that, human being failure will cause ultimately blockchain failure is how many blockchains ultimately do die. Right? If there's no one left to run the computer, there's no one left to fix the code, no one left to version, no one left to leave the lights plugged in, then it will die. And so that's kind of a fundamental risk to all of this. Now, so Osmosis, they're going to print basically 1 billion Osmo tokens, and they tend to build these with an asymptomatic curve where you have earlier rewards are higher, and then over time the rewards kind of level out and then level off. This is the same way that Bitcoin originally came out. This is what Bitcoin halvings essentially lead to, is the notion that each early block is higher incentive than later blocks. And early adopters are more highly incentive. So Osmo right now, during this current year, is going to have inflation of 300%, which is huge. So you started out with 100 million tokens. A year from now, there will be 400 million tokens. So 300 million tokens are going to be minted this year. The next year, there will be 200 million tokens. The next year after that, there will be 133 million tokens, and every year it drops by 1/3. Now that's just one particular blockchain's tokenomics, all of which can be changed or altered to some degree by votes. And you can vote on various things with a lot of these blockchains. That's why they're decentralized, because the governance, there's no person or institution or organization that controls them. They're decentralized, autonomous organizations. That's the goal. This is going to show up in court in the U.S., and my guess is the Supreme Court's going to go, I don't know, what do you say, rich buddies? No? Anyway, they have no idea what this stuff means. But so just beware, because the numbers on some of these screens are eye-popping, and I'm not going to lie. I mean, if you see something and you see, well, there's $200 million in here, and it's paying out at an APR of, and that's an APR, mind you, not an APY, an APR of 138%. That's insanity. That's a ridiculous return, and that's what's happening in decentralized finance right now. But that's because so many of these are coming into this world where, there's so much value in the world, and these are so new technologies. This hasn't really ever existed before for our species. And so there's just a lot of opportunity, a lot of competition. All right, so now I saved this for the end because this term is funny. I wanted to make this video on one end because so many people talk about this. And let me just go full screen for a few minutes, because you may come all the way to the end and be like, when the hell is he going to talk about impermanent loss? I want to know what impermanent loss is. What's impermanent loss? And what is impermanent gain? So it's one of the things that you need to understand here is there are risks, and I already explained this earlier in the video, actually, what all of these terms mean, and if you were to understand it now, hopefully I can tie this together for you. Because impermanent loss is the most misunderstood and scary term in decentralized finance. Because it sounds weird, and it's different, and it's new, and quite frankly, I don't know that it's ever really existed as a financial risk before. I'm sure there are other things out there that are similar to it, but it's a little abstract. So let me explain to you with my hands. So remember, when you make a pool token, you're taking token A and token B, and you're putting them together. And you get a certain percent of value of the pool itself, a percentage of the pool. If that value goes up, you get more. If that value goes down. Now, wait a second, you say to yourself. What if one of those tokens goes up and the other one goes down? Or one of them goes up and the other one goes up? Or one of them goes up and the other one doesn't move? One of them goes down. Yeah, there's a lot of different scenarios. And one of the ways that people describe the risk of that scenario is the term impermanent loss. The term impermanent means that when you put these tokens together in the pool, they are no longer individualized token. You have, at that point, combined the value into another thing, and then you've put them into the pool, and now they are not permanently one or the other, right? You have a pool token, which represents value of the pool, not necessarily the tokens that you put into it. It's the value of those tokens that you put into the pool. And when you pull those out, those pool tokens out, you will get the value of the pool that those tokens represent. So impermanent loss happens. What it describes, what it is, right? So it's a comparison of if you had joined a pool or not, based on the value involved. And it's built on the notion that token A here, Token A, you can hold it, right? This is scenario 1. You hold token A. You got 100 of them, you hold them. That's it. They go up in value, you gain value. They go down in value, you lose value, right? Anybody who's done that. That's scenario 1. Scenario 2. You take half of token A and put it into token B. You put them together, and now your value of the combined tokens is the same as it used to be in scenario 1, right? So now this is scenario 2. You've got these LP tokens. Now, what happens? Token A doubles in price. It's now way up here. Now, had all your value been held, remember back in scenario A, if all your value was still in token A, bam, you would have doubled in price. You doubled your value. If token A had halved in price, you would lose half of your value. But now you're in this pool. So if token A doubles in price, you don't get twice that value. And the way the math on it really depends on how, and it gets a little bit complex, but you'll get basically half of that value going up. The difference between what you, and then say if you pull your stuff out back out of the pool, you'll now have less value than if you had just held those token A's. And the difference between those two scenarios is called kind of impermanent loss. Because you had a loss in the pool that wasn't quite the same, but you left it in there and you pulled it out. Now once you've pulled something out of a pool, any impermanent loss is real. Now, impermanent gain, and I'm going to put this here, and I'm going to put this on video, I'm going to put this on the internet, because people do not understand the exact same scenario. If I put my token A, and I combine it, and in this case, say I combine it with a stable coin, which is kind of what we've assumed here was been going on. You can pool stuff with any kind of other token, and so you get all sorts of movements. And the difference between what's going on here is not really what you want to watch. What you want to watch is the value of the pool. But anyway, you have token A. You combine it with your stable coin. Now you've taken half the value out. You've put it with the stable coin. Your token now halves in price. But your pool value doesn't half in price. It only goes down by maybe 25%. Right? It's not going to even go by that. And so now, right, you pull that out, and your value is higher than what it would have been if you hadn't joined the pool and if you just held. And that's impermanent gain. You know, if you're going to call something impermanent loss, you have to call the opposite impermanent gain. It's the bias of higher value is why impermanent loss has grown as a term. It doesn't mean much. And I'm sorry if you made it all the way to the end and you disagree, but we can argue about it. But the impermanent part means that your value is in a pool. Your actual gain and actual loss happens when you pull it out. So why would anybody do this, right? Why would anybody provide liquidity? Why would anybody allow other people to trade their value? What's the point of it? Like, why? You're just going to be nice to people. You're going to be like, well, if I do that, then people are always going to trade like my token that's crappy for the one that they want. If I put them both in there, like, yeah, they would. So there's a few things, but the main thing that you get is going back to our centralized exchange example. When you make an exchange on Coinbase and you pay that 0.05% fee, you pay that fee to Coinbase. When you make an exchange on a decentralized exchange and you pay, for example, here, a 0.03% fee, the fee on osmosis goes back into the pool. The fee on most decentralized exchanges gets added back to the pool value. And so these fees aren't going to a centralized entity that is allowing you to trade. They are going to the wallet addresses that own the tokens that are in the pool that are allowing you to trade. So you become the liquidity provider that allows other people to trade. This is the idea of decentralized exchanges. The liquidity is provided by the users. The trades are initiated by the users. The rewards go to the people providing the liquidity to the traders. The gains for the trades, the losses for the trades go to the traders. But, as a liquidity provider, what you want people to do is use your tokens to trade. The more utility your tokens have, the more, over time, value they generate. And also, you get incentivized for doing that. That's the main thing that a lot of people are looking at and is eye-popping right now, are the incentives that people are trying to provide to get people to provide liquidity. So be aware of that. And that covers really most of what I wanted to talk about today. Editing this is going to be a beast, but we'll get there. So, to wrap up, thank you for dropping by. I always appreciate it. Like and subscribe to the video if you found this very interesting or not. Today we covered the concepts of automated market makers, AMMs, liquidity pools, gas fees, centralized exchanges, decentralized exchanges, staking, baking, farming, inflation, impermanent loss, impermanent gain. And I'll leave you with just this notion before we really start into getting to the specifics of a lot of these decentralized platforms. It all works. It all works pretty good. Solana is insanely fast. There are, and so is Phantom. The more, there's trade-offs with each one of them, and there's different opportunities in different places and various things, and we'll talk about that. But it works, and that's what's wildly interesting about the whole thing. And with that, we shall bid you adieu. Happy farming.